And loyalty starts with being loyal to yourself. A man that's truly loyal to himself is not going to risk his household with a marriage of 24 years, 27-year relationship and 3 children to go sleep with another woman and then end up with a baby at 61. Hi, SU. You're a Scorpio. Yay! I love Scorpio energy. Oh, SU's getting a divorce. I'm so sorry to hear that. But at the same time, congratulations, because obviously if things were going well, you wouldn't be getting a divorce. I want to acknowledge the pain, but I also want to acknowledge the freedom. After 27 years, wow, it probably took a lot of courage to get out of a relationship after 27 years. Most people, when they get towards those digits, they just assume they're just gonna die miserable. I'm so glad that you chose the courage to still pursue a new dream, a new vision. Is there something in particular that was the last straw for you in terms of ending the 27-year relationship? Was it a 27-year marriage or 27-year relationship? If you could clarify, that would be lovely. Thanks to you guys that are tapping on the screen. I appreciate it. And thank you for becoming the #1 10 fan in the fan club. I appreciate it. I want to remind you guys that I have my subscriptions open. To access it, you just go to my main page and there's going to be a link in bio for you to become a subscriber. And that's a way for you to support the live sessions that I have here on TikTok, okay? Thank you for the hand heart. So Ginger Travel has her astrology information here. So Ginger, I see you. I was talking with SU, so let me finish with them and then I'll circle back to you, okay? Hi, Courtney. Thank you for getting the #3 gifter badge. I appreciate it. All right. Oh, it was 24 years married, 27 years together. I get it. Okay. Thank you so much, SU, for saying it. It is so difficult. Of course it's difficult. This is a quarter of your life. Like more than a quarter at this point, more than a quarter of a century of knowing somebody. If you've been in an intimate relationship with somebody for a quarter of a century, it doesn't matter what capacity. It could be a job, it could be a friend, it could be a neighbor. Even a neighbor. If you had a neighbor for a quarter of a century and that neighbor moved, you would have some emotional feelings about it. You would have some intense feelings about it. So let alone somebody that you married, somebody that you live with, that you laid next to at night. That's a very intimate relationship. Even if it was a year, it would be difficult to get a divorce, let alone 27 years of a relationship. It's going to be hard. I expect it to be challenging. He cheated. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I have no respect for cheaters. Let's just put it out there. I understand people cheat. Don't get me wrong. I get it. Okay. And I get that you can come back from a relationship after cheating. I get that. Lots of couples have been able to survive cheating, As someone that used to work as a therapist, I know it's possible. But on an emotional level, I just get so frustrated with the concept of cheating. Because what do you mean you cheated when you could have just had a conversation? I just don't understand how you can be married to somebody and be so cowardly about communicating with them. That doesn't make sense to me. Why marry that person if you can't talk to them? I don't get it. And I know there are lots of reasons why people cheat. I get it. I get all the emotional, the psychological reasons. It doesn't change my feelings about it. I just think it's gross and I think it's lazy. That's what I really believe. I think it's lazy because anybody can do it. It's easy to do. It doesn't take much effort. What takes effort and what's harder to do is actually confronting the issues in your relationship so the relationship can be better so that you don't feel like you have to cheat. Or if the relationship cannot be better, so you can get out of there and get somewhere where you're happy. But for you to be keeping that person hostage in a situation that you're clearly miserable in and then pretending to live another life when they're not around is cowardly. Like there's no other way for me to see that. And it's also lazy, like if you were truly hardworking, you would be working hard at your relationship, but you obviously didn't want to work hard at it. That's a decision that you made. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate that he made that decision. So you said for 4 years he cheated. Oh my God. Can you imagine cheating for 4 years? Where do people find the time? Do you not have responsibilities? How can you cheat for 4 years when you have 3 kids? Do your kids not have homework? Because I have one and it's a lot of work. I cannot imagine having three and still having the time to be entertaining a completely different household in addition to my own. That is insane. He's 61 years old and now has a child with the other woman. Oh, wow. It sounds like him having a child with another woman must have been very shocking, especially at 61 years old when he already has 3 other children. That's wild. That's wild. I'm so sorry you went through that. You know, like, that's me getting off my high horse about cheating. Again, I understand cheating happens. I understand why people cheat. I don't think cheaters are the worst humans on earth. I get it. It's not literally the worst thing that a human can be. I get it. I get it. I'm not trying to make it seem like it's the most like terrible thing that you can be as a person. I'm just saying, if you're going to go through the process of claiming somebody, of claiming your relationship, of committing to that relationship, why not put in the work to fix what's going on in your relationship, as opposed to taking the easy way out when you're having issues in your relationship and then betraying your person? Like, this is supposed to be your person, and you're gonna let a stranger have secrets that they know about you that your person doesn't know. Like, to me, the math is not mathing. Like, how is that empowering to me that a stranger can have that kind of leverage over me when the person that I trust the most is in my house? I don't get it. I just don't get it. I feel like the effort that you need to put into fixing what's going on in your home is going to give you more of a reward than putting that effort into living a double life and cheating with somebody else, ending up with a child at 61, and now you've got to get back to changing diapers. That is wild. And he's a Taurus? Oh, that makes sense. You know, there's nothing funny about it. I laugh because I'm uncomfortable. I laugh because Taurus men traditionally will cheat because they're bored in their marriage or they're unhappy in their marriage, but because they're so status conscious and so conscious, so aware of like how people think of them, how people perceive them, Taurus is very, very involved with trying to impress people with their possessions. It's really important to Taurus that people see them in a specific light. They're very controlling of the narrative that people have about them. So Taurus, right along with all the other earth signs, Capricorn and Virgo, these people are very obsessed with presenting a good image, a good relationship front, even when the relationship isn't good. Instead of getting out, instead of getting therapy, instead of accepting that the relationship is broken and that it needs healing, they would rather pretend that there are no issues just so the Joneses can still think, oh my God, what a lovely couple they are. They're so lovely. I enjoy them so much. Earth signs, remember, rule over possessions, okay? For Taurus, it's like primal possession. Marriage, home, money. This is why Taurus is very obsessed. Taurus is generally very obsessed with money, with finances. Taurus tends to be a highly materialistic zodiac sign for this reason, okay? This is why when it's placed at the moon, they tend to be very envious of, jealous of other people, because there's never enough money to satisfy an unhealed Taurus moon. It doesn't exist. There's never enough joy. There's never enough pleasure. There's never enough satisfaction. These people want and they 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 want, and they have everything that they need to be safe. They have everything they need to be secure. They have everything they need to survive, but they don't stop wanting. And that fundamentally is the root of the issue. Being ruled by Venus, Taurus is all about their pleasures, all about their possessions. Okay, Taurus doesn't rule pleasure, but Taurus rules comfort. And comfort and pleasure go together. So a Taurus that is miserable in their marriage is not going to take the initiative to actually face the discomfort of the marriage. They're not going to take the initiative to go sit on the couch of a therapist and work on their marriage. What they're going to do is pretend that their marriage is going well while they're living an entirely different life out there. And I don't put the other earth signs, underneath that You know, I don't think the other earth signs are too evolved for that behavior either. Capricorn especially is massively a cheater when it comes to, you know, being able to work, like their work-life balance. Capricorn is terrible at work-life balance. And you know, for Taurus, lust is what drives the cheating. And for Capricorn, it's more like an emotional release because they work too hard and they want to feel good. And for Virgo, it's more of like realizing that the dream, the fantasy of like having this Puritan experience is not fulfilling. You know, like Virgo really went into this marriage having done all their homework, picking the right person, looking at all the criteria, the characteristics. You know, Virgo is very picky, very selective about what they want. So they finally found somebody that meets their criteria, and they're finally excited to have that person. And despite all of their best efforts, they're not able to feel fulfilled. They're not able to feel loved. They're not able to feel intellectually complimented in that relationship. When the despair sets in for Virgo in terms of like all of their work going unnoticed and all of their work not giving them the reward that they want, that's when they start cheating. Okay. And for them, it's more like you brought it on yourself. You deserve my disloyalty because all the loyalty that I gave you when I invested into this relationship, you took for granted, you undermined, you undervalued, you did not respect. So you deserve it. And you know, all the earth signs naturally are going to be drawn towards having a variety of people that they entertain because again, earth represents possessions. You know, again, Taurus rules the second house. So that's the house of values, the house of possession. You know, Taurus is not known for being the most faithful zodiac sign, but it's definitely the most loyal. So what Taurus really wants in reality, if they were being honest, is a marriage where they can cheat and then they can come home and you don't mind. In reality, what they want is a marriage where they can see other people, where it's not cheating, like you know what they're doing, but they don't want you doing the same. That's really what they want, which isn't fair. And that's why they don't propose it, because they know it's not going to fly. But if they were being honest, they would tell you that's what they want. What they want is to keep a woman at home that's having the babies, that's giving them the self-esteem from the community, that's giving them the impression of being stable, that's giving them like the impression of like having built a castle. Because Taurus men, they're going to work hard. They're going to bring the money. You know, they're going to keep the stability in the home. They're going to keep things organized. So when you're looking from the outside in, everything looks perfect. That's what they want. They want the trophy wife that holds it down, and then they want to run the street and do what they want discreetly, but they don't want her to do the same. And they know it's not fair. They know it. That's why they can't talk to her about it. That's why they have to go behind her back to do it, because they don't have the confidence to admit that that's what they really want. Because what they really want is a bunch of women that are fighting for them, that are desiring them, that are giving them attention. That's what they really want, honestly, because they feel like if they're making enough money to be able to provide for their family, they should have the right to have fun. That's a Taurus man. They should have the right to have fun. And after a while, that woman that he has at home is a little bit boring. And he wants some excitement in his life. Remember, Taurus is a bit of a chaotic energy. Yes, they're a fixed earth sign, but Taurus is the toddler of the zodiac. Have you ever raised a toddler? Have any of you ever raised a toddler? I want to know if you know what I'm talking about. Kath said that's really unfair. Rochelle said not fair at all. It's true. It's not fair. Okay, Ginger said she raised 2 toddlers. Moon Crimson said, yep. Yeah. Oh, I see. I work with children. Okay, Rochelle works with children. Monique said, yes, they're selfish. Plus my ex. There you go. Taurus is a toddler in astrology. They're selfish, okay? Their focus is on themselves, okay? They want what makes them feel good, okay? They're possessive. They're controlling. You know, a toddler, you would take them outside. If they want something, you take them to the grocery store. If they want a toy, you say no. What are they going to do? A big production. They're going to throw themselves on the floor. They're going to yell. They're going to scream. They want everybody to know that you're the worst mom ever. You're so terrible. Of course, toddlers don't have that kind of insight where they're manipulating you. It's not like they're doing it to manipulate you, but it's really about being insistent on what they want. A Taurus is insistent on what they want, much like a toddler. Toddlers misbehave often, right? They do. And when you catch them red-handed even, they will lie. Okay? Did you draw on the wall? No? Who drew on the wall? Meanwhile, there's like markers all over their face. There's markers all over the wall. Literally the markers on the toddler's feet. And you can see that they were just at this wall, you know, all over this wall decorating it. Did you draw on the wall? No, I didn't. Well, who did it? I don't know. I didn't do it. Why? Because a toddler doesn't want to get in trouble. He knows if he says yes, something is going to happen that makes him feel uncomfortable. So, no, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It's not me. I didn't do it. So that is Taurus. Taurus wants what they want, when they want, how they want it. Do you understand? That's what they want. They want a woman that can control. They want a woman that can mold, and they want a woman who's going to play her position. And to a Taurus man, playing your position means no matter what type of abuse or trauma he puts you through, you committed yourself to be with him for life, so you should stick with him through thick and thin. That's how he sees it. Did you initiate the divorce, or did he initiate the divorce? I'm curious to know about the psychology of this man. Did he initiate the divorce? Because oftentimes what I see is that the Taurus man will cheat, but then he will refuse to divorce her. Because again, Taurus is very fueled by control. Remember, Taurus is sister to Scorpio. Both of these signs really struggle with control. For Scorpio, it's stemming from a fear of losing power, and for Taurus, it's stemming from a fear of losing control. Taurus is in love with the control itself because the control feeds into their routine, it feeds into their comfort. When their routine and their comfort is threatened, Taurus feels very unstable. Remember, fixed earth sign. The chaos that they create, they can handle. But the chaos that you create, they cannot handle. And they're never available for any chaos that you create. It has to start from them, okay? Unlike Scorpio, Taurus does not have a lot of flexibility emotionally. So typically a Taurus man, if you're coming to him and you tell him you want a divorce, he's not going to be with it. Even if he knows he deserves it, he's still going to want to fight you because it's about controlling the narrative. You know, like he's built this reputation of being this family man. He's got 3 kids. He's a good man. He's loyal. He takes care of his family. Everybody's taken care of. You divorcing him and then telling other people that he cheated, that's a huge blow to his self-esteem because it shows, you know, the hedonistic aspect of Taurus. When Taurus is in their low vibration state, they take the Venus energy very literally. Because remember, toddlers are very literal. Very literal. You know, when mom is near toddler, they're like, that's my mom. You know, everyone who's ever raised a toddler knows toddlers are all about me, mine, my. Don't touch what's mine. You know, this is why Taurus has a reputation of not sharing their food, because that's our food. You know, you're their woman. This is their house. Everything is my, me, my. They're not worried about you. They expect you to figure out whatever you need to figure out emotionally so you're comfortable, but they're going to make sure that they have what they want when they want it, however they want it. Okay? Dawn says, makes perfect sense. Kath said, yes, they're gaslighters too. Yes, toddlers are very good liars. Actually, when I say very good liars, I don't mean that they're good at it because it's very obvious that they're lying. I mean that it comes easily. You know, it's like, did you throw that at your brother? No, I didn't. And then even when you get them to admit that they threw it at their brother, it's going to be because their brother did something. Well, he threw it at me first. You know, he did this first. Never mind that is not a healthy way to respond. You know, like toddlers don't yet have the cognitive ability to like reason. So everything is very primitive. It's like, I have it, you want it, you're taking it from me, I'm miserable. The end. It doesn't matter that you took it because you were more hungry. It doesn't matter that you took it because yesterday I had it and today you want me to share. You know, toddlers are not, you know, evolved enough psychologically to be able to understand the nuances of other people's needs, okay? The very first adult zodiac sign is Virgo. Until we get to Virgo, everybody's in their child state. Everybody is in their child energy. And you also have to look at the degree of that sun sign. You know, if that Taurus is at the 1 degree, that is the earliest degree of Taurus. If that Taurus is at the 29th degree, you know, we're getting to the older degree of Taurus. So the degree of the zodiac sign also tells you the level of maturity that that Taurus is going to have. So we already know toddlers struggle with sharing, they struggle with controlling, they struggle with being good communicators, right? They struggle with being empathetic. That's the other thing. Like, they don't care how you feel when they're having a tantrum in the middle of the grocery store. You think they're worried about you? No, they're not worried about you. They're worried about this toy that you're not giving them. And that's all they're worried about. It doesn't matter if you can afford it. They don't care. It doesn't matter if it's embarrassing to you. They don't care. They want this toy. They're doing everything they can to get this toy. That's the end of the story. They're very much so focused on what's in it for them. What's in it for you, that's for you to figure out. Okay? So when you're married to a Taurus, there's going to be a level of this energy that you have to deal with. But when they're in their low vibrational state, that's what it looks like, where they want the pleasure, but don't want the responsibility of maintaining it. And that's where the problem starts. So I'd asked you if he asked for the divorce. So let me see. Someone said yes, they're very selfish. Let's see. I thought Aries is the baby of the zodiac. Yes, Aries is the infant. So Aries is even less emotionally mature than a toddler. Aries is the least emotionally mature zodiac sign. And then right after Aries, we get Taurus. Taurus is a toddler. And Gemini is a school-age child. Have you seen how Gemini is always asking questions? They want to find out information, how they're always able to twist information to give it a new meaning. If you're raising a first grader, you know exactly what I'm talking about. First graders are very inquisitive. What does this happen? How does this happen? And they're very focused. If you have a smart first grader, they're always looking for a hole in your argument. They're always trying to find a loophole to the story. So if you say, yes, an orange is orange, that's why they call it an orange. Well, they're going to be like, well, that's why an orange is a fruit. An orange is orange. That's why they call it an orange. It might say, well, this is a color orange, but it's not an orange. You say, well, this is a color orange, but it's not an orange. You know, like Gemini as a zodiac sign is very much so into challenging the information, challenging the status quo. You know, challenging what you think you know, and a lot of that comes from their inquisitive nature. You know, they are a school-age child. And that's what actually makes them one of the smartest zodiac signs, is because they don't just accept the information that you give them. They research and they twist it around to see if it still holds itself when you put it under a different microscope. So up until we get to Virgo, everybody, it's his own kind of child. You know, for Aries, how that shows up is like the emotional reflexes. You know, an underdeveloped Aries is highly emotionally reactive with very little insight into the emotional world. You know, Aries could be calm. Somebody says something to Aries. It's somebody that Aries doesn't like. Next thing you know, Aries jumped across the table. That person is in a chokehold, or that person has gotten severely hurt from Aries, letting them have all of their anger. Next thing you know, the police get called. Aries is in jail for assault. Okay? Aries gets out of jail for assault, and you ask them what happened. They can't even tell you at the point where they lost control. They can't even tell you, because the way they respond to discomfort is often, almost always aggressive. Okay? There is no curiosity here. You know, an infant is not interested in why it is that they've been crying for 5 minutes and you're not coming to change your diaper. They don't care that you're in a shower. You know, at least a toddler knows you're in the shower. They just want you to hurry up. This is why Taurus is more patient than Aries. Aries wants it now. Like, what's wrong with you? I know you can hear me. I know you can hear me. Because yesterday, when I was crying, I knew you heard me. So how come now I'm crying and you're not coming? What's your problem? What's going on? What's the issue? What is the issue? And the more Aries has to cry, the more they get frustrated. Aries doesn't like to ask for help for this reason, because you're supposed to know what to do. You're the grown-up. They're the child, okay? You're the grown-up. They shouldn't have to converse about it. You know, so the emotional reactions that we have, they get strengthened as we get older. You know, the level of emotional insight that Pisces has is not anything that Aries can relate to. The emotional insight that Aquarius has is not something Taurus can relate to. It's just, as you know, think of the zodiac wheel as like a wheel of like development, human development. So the fresh new souls are Aries souls. The oldest souls that are dying off are Pisces souls. Okay, so we go from Aries to Pisces, all of us. And Taurus is just a step above that infant stage where they're still acting out of their ego, acting out of their feelings, have a little bit more cognition than the infant, where they can communicate a little bit more about what's happening. They're a little bit more patient, but they're also very dramatic. You know, they're very dramatic and they're very possessive, very jealous. You know, they hold others to a standard that they can't even hold themselves to. You know, they say, that's my mommy, that's my blanket, don't touch her. But if they want to play with somebody else, with someone else, they can play with somebody else. You don't get to say, that's my baby, come here, because they only come when they want to come. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a very one-sided way of doing relationships. When you're dealing with a Taurus, you should get used to some of that, because there isn't a lot of, you know, emotional generosity. You know, a Taurus is always going to prioritize their emotional safety, their emotional comfort over everybody else. That's just the rule, okay? Aru said, makes sense. What if Big Three has both Aries and Aquarius? How does that mix play out? Well, at least it's a little bit more energetically balanced instead of maturity, but that's a very, that's a very rebellious soul right there. You know, Aries and Aquarius, these two are some of the most rebellious zodiac signs in the world of astrology. So yeah, I can see that, definitely. All right, and now I want to clarify, disclaimer, I'm not saying any of this to say that Aries is bad or that Taurus is bad. All of us have our challenges, okay? There are no, I don't have a favorite zodiac sign in terms of like one is bad and one is not good. Like one is bad and one is good, rather. You know, all of us have work to do. When you're in Aries, I need you to know you're a new soul on earth. And that's why everything is hard. And that's why you have to do everything by yourself. And that's why people don't support you as much as they could. And that's why people act like you can handle any and everything. And they give other people more grace than they give you. You know, all of that is because you're a new soul on earth. And that's why you trust easily. That's the other thing. Aries is very gullible, even though they're very aggressive and warrior-like they're always ready to go to war whenever you cross them. But they can be very naive when it comes to love. Like an Aries will quickly fall in love with somebody. You know, they're more likely to like behave like they believe in love at first sight. You know, and Aries that's evolved shouldn't be that trusting of people, because if you're a warrior, you should be more protective of yourself, because warriors don't survive war by making themselves available to any and everyone. So the naivety of that infant, you know, in the sense that they trust that mom is just going to be taking care of them, that's just inherent. It's an inherent to an Aries, and that's what makes Aries a zodiac sign that's like very complex, because on one hand they're fighting you, but on the other end they're fighting you because they want you to protect them, they want you to love them. Then, you know, they're deeply loyal when they get in love. Sometimes they stay with people who hurt them, who abuse them, who take their generosity, you know, for weakness, because they're truly deeply loyal people. Like a baby doesn't want to go to a new mom. You know, they want to stay with the same mom. They want to stay comfortable where they know this mom. So it's very hard for Aries to get out of relationships for that reason, whenever things are not good, you know, because they don't, you know, much like the toddler, you know, they don't want to change. But for Taurus, it's motivated by control. And for Aries is that they feel safe there. You know, there's a nostalgic quality, a tender, soft quality to Aries that we hardly ever talk about. You know, like babies are terrors, but they're also very sweet, you know, and that's Aries. Like you have to be able to handle the baby that's welling, and you have to be able to handle the baby that's smiling at you and cooing at you. That's Aries energy all the way. So again, there are no like good or bad zodiac signs. It's just everyone developmentally is at a different stage, and we're all here to master our sun sign and embody that energy. Your sun sign is who you're here to master. And this is why you'll meet a Taurus man that's a cheater, because he's mastering loyalty. You know, you can't give it if you don't have it. Right? And, you know, a man who loves and respects himself doesn't pull these kinds of moves. A man who doesn't respect himself and who doesn't love himself and who doesn't have a good foundation and who doesn't have a strong, you know, root chakra, who doesn't have a lot of inner security, is the kind of man that does that, because he's looking for his security outside of himself. He's looking for his comfort outside of himself. A man that is a master of his divinity, of his essence, doesn't look for his security outside. He looks for it within. So that's how you hear these kinds of things. When a zodiac sign is not acting like itself, it's because the sun sign is not mature. There are other elements on our zodiac chart that says more about our disposition emotionally. So you want to look at the entire chart, not just the sun sign, because if I'm struggling with my sun sign, you're going to see the opposite of what I'm supposed to do, you know, because I'm still learning how to become that, how to become my sun sign. All of us are learning how to become our sun signs. Good question. All right, now there was another question that I was asked while I was answering the first question that I got. I'm sorry, I forgot your name already. Can you please ask me again so I can see your name, and then I will answer your question. Thanks to you guys that are tapping on the screen. I appreciate it. Thank you for getting me to 11K likes. I appreciate it. This is a good segue for me to remind you that I have a lot of free content available on YouTube. Link in bio for you to access my YouTube channels. I have one on health and wellness, holistic health and wellness. It's called Styled Under Virgo. I have one about love and relationship. It's called Styled Under Libra. I have intuitive healing, which is the main channel where I talk about general astrology. And I also have a horoscope podcast called the Aquarius Podcast. And you can also listen to it on YouTube at the Aquarius Podcast. If you would like an astrology reading, you can go to intuitivehealing.com to book your reading, and you can also have access to your daily horoscopes on Patreon at Intuitive Healing. Okay, so as far as Intuitive Healing, that YouTube channel, I have over 1,600 videos there. I produce a lot of content. So if you have questions that I'm not able to answer here, just go on my YouTube channel and subscribe. Search the search bar for whatever your topic is, and chances are that topic has probably already been answered. Okay. All right, now Ginger was the second person with her question. Ginger wants to know, who is compatible for me? I am a Leo sun, an Aquarius moon, and a Gemini rising here. Oh, let me make sure I add this before I forget to add it. My subscriptions are currently open if you would like to subscribe to me so that during lives, you know, I can give you precedent over other people, especially if I get a lot of questions. That would be lovely. And it's also a good way to say thank you for all of the work that I do here on TikTok for free. Okay. All right. Back to Ginger's question. Who is compatible for me? Leo sun, Aquarius moon, and Gemini rising here. All right. Well, Ginger, can you tell me about your Venus? That will give more meat to this conversation for me. Because Venus is how we determine how much love we need, what kind of love we need, the kind of love that makes us feel fulfilled versus the kind of love that doesn't. So when looking at love relationships, you want to start with your Venus, because Venus basically tells you what is my capacity for love and what is the type of love that I'm interested in. We're not all looking for the same kind of love, surprisingly. You know, oftentimes when you ask people why they're dating, they say they're looking for love. But I need you to know that love is different for everybody. Everybody has a different and unique type of love that they want. Your Venus sign tells you the kind of love that you're after. So what is your Venus sign, Ginger? So I can see what kind of love you're after. You said your ex was a Libra and then he cheated, as is typical of Libra. Because remember, Libra is ruled by Venus, just like Taurus. The Venusian boys, Taurus and Libra, they cheat, okay? I'm just going to put it out there. They cheat. And in the case of Libra, they cheat and they lie. You know, Taurus will also gaslight, but Libra is just much better at it than Taurus is, you know. Taurus is not a very good liar. They lie easily because they want to avoid getting in trouble, but they're not very crafty. Libra is a crafty liar. They're very good at superimposing stories or omitting little details to make things seem a certain way that weren't that way. Libra, being an air sign, being ruled by information, is very good at twisting information and organizing information so that they can get away with whatever it is they're doing. Okay? So that makes sense. Let's see. Okay, so Ginger said she's after the forever love and she needs to look up her Venus. She doesn't know her Venus. Okay, so in the absence of your Venus, Ginger, I'm just going to talk about your moon, because after looking at Venus, the moon placement is where I would go. Because you're an Aquarius moon, you're most compatible with the air sign moon. So that would be a Gemini moon. Okay? Of course, an Aquarius moon like yourself. Okay? Even though Virgo is ruled by Mercury, much like Gemini, I encourage you to avoid Virgo moons, all right? Because you both have very complicated childhoods, and there's no need for all of that trauma in one household. And obviously a Libra moon. So when you're looking for love, start with Venus and then move to your moon. Your moon placement tells you what is your capacity for emotional depth, emotional sensitivity, emotional intelligence. All zodiac signs are not built the same around this topic of emotional intelligence, emotional sensitivity, and emotional regulation. Some of them are really good at it, and some of them don't even know what I'm talking about right now. Right now, these things that I'm talking about, some of them are like cross-eyed. They're like, what do you mean? Because they don't all have that awareness, and they don't all value it. That's the other thing. You have to value it to have that awareness. You have to seek it. You have to want it. You know, as the zodiac signs get older, they become more curious about what's going on within. Just like in real life, you know, as we get older, all of us get a little bit more curious about what's going on within. But when we're younger, we don't really have that level of insight into what's going on within. We just do things because they feel good, you know. If I'm not getting that toy and I'm mad, I'm throwing myself on the ground because I feel like I need to throw a tantrum. I need to have it fit because it is quite unfair that I want this toy and you're depriving me of it. Why are you depriving me of it? Somebody needs to take notice of the fact that I want this thing and it's going to make me happy, and you are telling me no. That's not right. Same with the Aries. Like, if you're disrespectful to an Aries, they're gonna let you have it immediately. They're not gonna file it away to bring it up at a later time. Capricorn will. Because Capricorn is the oldest of the cardinal signs. Capricorn will wait until the moment is appropriate to have that conversation, and Aries will let you feel their pain immediately. So you need to know your moon sign compatibility when you're in a relationship with somebody. Another thing is the type of moon placement that you have plays a huge role. Aquarius at the moon loves to intellectualize their emotion. These are people that are very uncomfortable with emotional vulnerability. They want to think about feelings from a philosophical, psychological perspective. Aquarius wants to analyze our feelings from a distance without getting into the murky, nasty little waters of the messy human experience. You know, Aquarius moon, when they were little, they were raised by parents that were either hot and cold emotionally, or parents that were highly emotionally disorganized, parents that put a lot of pressure on them to be mature, to be wise, and to be emotionally together. So oftentimes Aquarius moon children were raised in homes where they were spiritually deprived, okay? And in that deprivation, they developed a lot of capacity for understanding human behavior, because they spent a lot of time observing the madness, the emotional madness that was coming at them from their caregivers, okay? Whether it's mom or dad, I don't know. But that's kind of what happens with Aquarius moon children. You know, for all Aquarius placements, there is a storyline around rejection and abandonment. And how that shows up with Aquarius moon children is that oftentimes they're expected to parent their parent because the parent is refusing to be the parent, okay? So when the parent refuses to be the parent, the Aquarius moon child learns by observing the parent you know, what to do and what not to do. Okay? They learn how to become responsible by observing the chaotic parent. The Aquarius moon child becomes then a little bit of a sage, you know, like a mini sage, like, ooh, let me rub my little, it looks like this, you know, and these children were put in positions where things will happen in the family, and that child would get to decide like how to handle it, how to respond, and how to navigate situations. But they knew the parent was too emotionally unsafe for them to merge with them. You see, in a healthy childhood development framework, what parents do is they mirror for their child what they want. As an example, you have a child who's learning how to walk, okay? When the child falls down, mom is here. Mom sees the child fell down, but this time it was a different type of fall. It was a kind of fall that was so like violent and aggressive that it startled the child, okay? By the way, infants get startled a lot, and that's why Aries is so reactive. That's why Aries is so ready to like fight anybody that like crosses them the wrong way. That reactivity that Aries has is because they get startled. In reality, Aries isn't angry. They're just emotionally reactive. They're emotionally explosive. Aries is ruled by Mars. Do you know that Mars has one of the biggest volcanoes in the universe on it? The biggest one in the universe is on Mars. So Aries is known for being emotionally explosive, and that emotional explosion really comes from them being easily startled. So babies sometimes get startled by themselves. Like, have you seen that video of that little girl that was startled by her shadow and that was crying and trying to run away from her shadow? One second. I'm getting some detox. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? That's very Taurus, by the way. Like, Taurus loves to deny their shadow selves. They only like the part of them that makes them look good. But the dark part of them, like, they hate it. They'll run away from it until the cows come home. They'll pretend for all of eternity that they're not as awful as they are. That's what Taurus does, okay? So what I'm trying to say is the little ones, they don't have a lot of awareness of what's going on. So they get emotionally like rattled very quickly, okay? So the infant, when they fall down, they'll get startled. Let's say your mom, you're near the baby when the baby falls down and the baby gets startled. In a healthy situation, mom will look at the baby. She may even get closer to the baby and say, "Oh, you got scared. I'm so sorry you got scared. It's okay. It's going to be all right. You can stand back up." And the baby takes her emotional cues from mom that, yeah, sometimes we get scared and it's okay. Sometimes we fall down and we get up and we keep moving forward. But in the case of, and it's okay. Sometimes we fall down and we get up and we keep moving forward. But in the case of the second, let me turn off my alarm. See. All right, I'm back. So in the case of the Aquarian moon child, when they got startled, mom didn't even notice. Mom did not notice. She was entirely in another world. So Aquarius moon children have been managing their lives and their emotions all by themselves since they were little. All by themselves since they were little. They were the provider in their home. They were the ones that brought logic to the surface when the adults were being irrational. And because of their ability to suppress their own emotions, they garnered this reputation in the family for being emotionless, for being emotionally controlled, for being cool, for being a good resource. A lot of times Aquarius Sun, Moon, and Rising will get used in their family as the free therapist because, thank you so much for my gift, because they offer a lot of wise advice, and that wisdom comes from being rejected as a child during their infancy stage, during their developmental stage, and having to develop wisdom from watching all the adults behave like children. Okay? So an Aquarius moon approaches relationships from a very detached place because that's the relationship they had with mom. Mom never gave them the freedom, the safety, and the space to merge with her, which children need to be able to develop in a healthy manner. So there's always going to be some separation emotionally with Aquarius moon. Oftentimes Aquarius moon want relationship, but they're also afraid of losing themselves in relationships. Very afraid of losing themselves in relationships because the price that they had to pay for conformity when they were little was really high. Mom wanted them to pretend to not have feelings so that she could have a mom, so that they could have a relationship with mom. Mom wanted them to be the caregiver so that they could have a relationship with mom. They didn't have a choice. They were forced into a role as a child. This is why Aquarius moon, when they become an adult, as soon as they can afford to move away from home, they do, and they never look back. I have yet to meet an Aquarius moon placement that was raised in a healthy home environment and who would describe their relationship with their parent as healthy. And by healthy, I mean they actually had parents. They actually had parents who emotionally parented them. Never. I've never met them. In fact, Britney Spears is an Aquarius moon. Do you see how that girl got used for all of her talent and all of her resources, and how she made all of her parents rich and gave them this quality of life just so they could keep her in the cage? Does anyone remember the Free Britney movement? Yeah, so that they can keep her in the cage, and then her sister can come out and say that Britney didn't do anything for her and all this stuff. Yeah, that's what it's like to be an Aquarius moon. Part of the Aquarius journey is for you to give your gifts. You see, Leo gets to be celebrated for their gifts. The flip side, which is Aquarius, is that your gifts get taken for granted. Okay? When you're an Aquarius, you should expect your intelligence, your wisdom, your emotional maturity to be taken for granted. People expect you to do things for them that they're not willing to reciprocate for you. Period. Because the story of Aquarius in Greek mythology is one of abuse. It's one of abuse, okay? We're not going to beat around the bush. It's one of abuse. This is why Aquarius moon is one of the worst moon placements that you can have, because it naturally comes with abuse and neglect. Okay, so these are generally very brilliant children who are not given the support because they're already seen as special, even though nobody actually tells them that. And then everybody makes them feel like they're weird, like something is wrong with them, but everybody uses them at the same time. So it's like, you're weird, something's wrong with you, you don't deserve to be given the same respect as everybody else because you're weird, but I'm still going to use you for everything that you've got. Okay, so an Aquarius moon placement, when they finally get out of that environment, they get in relationship, it's hard for them to give love and to show love. So they do better with the air moons. They don't do as well with the other moons that require more emotionality. Like water moons need a lot of emotionality. Aquarius moons also do well with fire moons. So get yourself a fire moon. You know, a fire moon can make you feel like you deserve to be treated with respect. That would teach you about passion, about standing up for yourself, about being bold, being brave, going for the things that you want. Because you happen to be a Leo sun, it's a nice balance of you like being able to tap into your ego and also tap into service. You know, Leo calls the shot because Leo is the king, okay? Aquarius is the servant. Do you see that? Aquarius is a servant, Leo is the king. They're together. They work together in harmony. And that's why Aquarian children, sun, moon, or rising, are usually made to feel weird, like they don't belong in the family. In the family they're born in, they're made to feel like they're aliens in their own family. And then when they leave their family, that's when they start rediscovering who they are. But even then, they never feel like they fit in anywhere. Aquarius moon children never fit in anywhere. They never do. Because they're here to learn that they have to fit in with themselves. Because there's never going to be an environment that feels like welcoming to all the parts that they are. They've had to learn how to love themselves very deeply because they were abandoned. These are the abandoned children of the world. These are the children that people sell. These are the children that people devalue, that people use, people abuse. Aquarius children, sun, moon, and rising. Yeah. So part of the Aquarian journey is to recreate your identity outside of your home family. And if you were to pair up with another air moon, you would be able to successfully do that because air signs bring a lot of ideas to the table. Like, can we deconstruct love? Can we think about love and relationships in another way? Is it possible to have a successful relationship while we're living in different homes? Can we have a lavender marriage and be perfectly happy? Like, Aquarius moon is the type to consider out-of-the-box ways of doing relationship because they know how to maintain their emotional boundaries without making other people feel responsible for them. They also know how to avoid being codependent in relationships. Aquarius moon is going to keep their identity regardless of if they're in a relationship or not in a relationship. And they need people who respect that. Otherwise, it's not going to work, okay? You being Leo at the sun, a fire sign would be good for you, or an air sign at the sun if we're looking for, you know, apples to oranges compatibility, like side by side. You know, fire signs do better with other fire signs. So that's a good mix there for you. And fire signs do really well with air signs if you're not able to get yourself a fire sign. And then lastly, Gemini rising. Gemini rising does better with rising signs that are air-based or rising signs that are fire-based. The best matches for Gemini are Aries, in fact, okay? Aries is a great match for Gemini. Leo is also a great match for Gemini. These two actually love gossiping together, Leo and Gemini. Great gossip team, great like in the know team, great like uns couple. Like this is the type of couple that everybody knows, everybody sees, everybody talks about because they're very social, they're very out there. They're very much so into like being seen, being in the know, knowing what's going on, being cool, being edgy, being like fresh, so a Leo rising would be good for you. And Aries rising is good for you too, but Aries is a little bit more dark energy, more feisty, but they will be very protective of you, and that plays really well with your moon sign because Aquarius and Aries are actually soulmates in astrology. So that's another positive there for you with that Aries rising. Sagittarius rising is good, but it's not necessarily the best because Sagittarius and Gemini have a 50% rate of success in relationship. They're literally sisters in astrology. And as you know, for any sister relationship, sometimes you and your sister, you get along great and everything is beautiful. And sometimes you and your sister, the only thing you share is blood. Like you just have nothing in common. So these relationships can go either one way or the other. And it's typically very extreme. There's no like wiggle room around it. It's either these two get together and they're together for life, or they get together and it's like a house on fire and the relationship crumbles really, really fast. Because the thing about dating your sister sign is that it highlights your shadows. Because the most similar zodiac sign to you is a Sagittarius rising. Okay, so if you're still struggling with things with yourself that you don't like about yourself and that you don't want to admit that you don't like about yourself because you're still in this space where you're trying to project the things that you don't like about yourself onto other people, when you get in a relationship with somebody that mirrors the same toxicity that you display back at you, you're going to want to take that back out to them as opposed to you going, why do I feel triggered by this? Why is this hurting my feelings? Why is this making me feel, a certain type of way? What is it about this situation that's causing me to react this way? Like this level of insight and curiosity is rare for most people. Most people, when they feel something that they don't like, they don't stop and ask themselves, why? Why? Why don't I like it? Why? Why do I feel that way about it? Just a simple question, a simple why. Why? Why? Aquarius has an easy time doing this because Aquarius is an intellectual. Aquarius rules genius in astrology, rules innovation. To be a genius, you have to ask why. You have to question. You have to challenge. You have to go beyond the status quo. So Aquarius doesn't struggle with that. Gemini doesn't struggle with that, but other zodiac signs do. Other zodiac signs are not as curious. There isn't a lot of intellectual curiosity about what makes me tick? What makes me tick? And why does that make me tick? That is what we call wisdom. Okay? So if you're somebody who is not a very wise person and you have no interest in developing wisdom, if you're in a relationship with a Sagittarius who is not a wise person and who does not have interest in developing wisdom, you two are going to be triggering each other and just arguing, and that's not very helpful. So when it comes to the fire, I think the other two are going to be stronger. And then, of course, naturally flipping onto that, avoid a Gemini rising if you can, because two Geminis together is just like four people in a relationship. It can get a bit chaotic. I don't recommend it. I don't like it when the mutables get together. They bring out the worst in each other. So I would prefer exploring the other air signs. So that would be Libra rising and Aquarius rising over Gemini rising, because who needs that level of chaos and why? You're already cool and entertaining by yourself. You don't need that kind of entertainment. Like, let somebody give you some passion. Let somebody give you some fire. That kind of entertainment is going to be a lot more fun for you than someone that wants to play mind games with you. Like, you're the mind game leader. You keep that. You trying to share that with somebody else, it could get a little messy. So that's my recommendation about who would be a good fit for you. As a Leo sun, Aquarius moon, and Gemini rising, I want you to know that this full moon in Aquarius that we're getting ready to have on the 9th is going to change your life. Okay? It's going to change your world because you're being 100% deprogrammed so you can be reprogrammed emotionally into the person that you're here to be. So be on the lookout for that. I just finished working on the podcast. Again, link in bio to listen to the Aquarius podcast, so you can go check it out. I made it super long because I am an Aquarius rising, so it was really resonating with me as I was making my way through it, because these are things that I too am learning, and I just wanted to like go deeper into it because I know Aquarius, requires a lot of information. So if you're Aquarius rising, Sun, Moon, or rising, or you have prominent Aquarian placement or Leo placement, Scorpio placement, Taurus, I need you guys to know like what's happening, because it's a karmic moon placement, is literally going to be life-changing. So it's either you're going to deprogram and update your software, your emotional software, or you're going to get broken. Like there's no other way around it. Uranus doesn't care about like what feels good for you. It cares about progress. It cares about evolution. So if the way you're living, the way you're thinking, the way you're behaving, the way you're experiencing emotions is regressive, if the way you're living is regressive, Uranus is going to break you down so you can be rebuilt back into a stronger, like more effective version of who you are. It's really about progress and evolution. Everything is about progress and evolution. And Saturn is about restriction. So if Saturn realizes that the way you're doing things is not the most effective way to do it, Uranus gets activated so you can be broken down. And I always advise people that it's better to allow the breaking down to happen so you can basically separate yourself with what no longer serves you, as opposed to waiting for the universe to force you into a corner. Because that's the thing, when we don't listen to the nudges from the universe, because at first the universe isn't aggressive or violent. This is why when people talk about karma in a negative way, I don't like it, because I don't think the universe is cruel. I think the universe is very loving. When the universe, God, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, that you worship, wants you to make a change with your life, it starts with a subtle nudge. It's a quiet voice. It's a whisper. It's a feeling like, this doesn't feel good anymore. And then it goes from there. It gets more and more amplified. And then other things start happening in the environment that remind you. You start seeing things. You start smelling things. You start experiencing things that remind you like, you need to make a change. And when you continue on this path, that's when we get to place. You need to make a change. And when you continue on this path, that's when we get to place. And then when you continue in this path, that's when we get to places where things actually start breaking and where we start being punished for not listening. Uranus is electricity in astrology. Aquarius rules frequency. Uranus is lightning. It's very fast. It's quick. It's destabilizing. So it's much easier to just take responsibility, take ownership, and make the change than to wait for external factors to destabilize you, because when that happens, it always leaves you more gutted than you would have been if you just listened and done what needed to be done. Okay? So that's all that I have for today. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the 15K hearts. We started with 0, ended at 15K. Thank you to all of you for all of your support. All links in bio. If you want to schedule a reading, go to intuitivehealing.com to do so. All links in bio for all of my free content and for your horoscope, and to listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.